The same people building the world's most powerful technology, the same people designing AI, social media, and the devices we use every day are sending their kids to schools that barely use the technology at all. Meanwhile, we have been told that our kids need digital literacy to succeed in today's world. So here's the question: why? Especially at a time when IQ scores have stopped rising, and in some places have started to decline for a first time in 100 years. So let's unpack this. So everything came to light January of 2026 at a US Senate hearing. A neuroscientist sharing all his findings when it comes to IQ levels declining, especially when it comes to tech. And he didn't hold back.
Our kids are less cognitively capable than we were at their age. Since we've been standardizing and measuring cognitive development since the late 1800s, every generation has outperformed their parents. And that's exactly what we want. We want sharper kids. Until Gen Z. Gen Z is the first generation in modern history to underperform us on basically every cognitive measure we have, even though they go to more school than we did. So why? What happened? What happened around 2010? The answer appears to be the tools we are using within schools to drive that learning. Once countries adopt digital technology widely in schools, performance goes down significantly. Kids who use computers about 5 hours per day in school for learning purposes will score over 2/3 of a standard deviation less. And we now have the clear understanding of why tech does not work for learning. And it is all biological. We have evolved biologically to learn from other human beings, not from screens. And screens circumvent that process.
For me, it hits close to home. I have 2 kids that are Gen Alpha, and I'm thinking to myself, if this is his findings when it comes to Generation Z, what happens with the following generation, which is Gen Alpha? And this is the generation that's really being exposed to tech and AI. So after seeing what Dr. Horvath had to say, what exactly is IQ? IQ stands for intelligence quotient. What it measured and how it measured has evolved. All the advancements, even with the education system, they had to constantly update it. And there are 5 main parts in terms of what it measures. So the first is cognitive processing, and that is short-term and long-term memory, speed of information processing. The second is reasoning abilities, logical reasoning, spatial visualization, and puzzle solving skills. The third is fluid intelligence. That is the capacity to think logically and solve new problems independently of acquired knowledge. Fourth is crystallized intelligence, and that is the ability to use skills, knowledge, and experience. Lastly is verbal language abilities. That is comprehension and usage of language. So that is what it measures. Now, given there are a lot of things that IQ testing does not measure, some may argue it might even be more important than actual IQ testing. So this is what it does not measure. So first, rational reasoning and critical thinking. I think that's an extremely important skill, no matter what generation we're from. Second, practical intelligence. That is also known as street smarts or everyday problem solving. Third is creativity, artistic or innovative capacity. Number 4 is emotional intelligence, understanding emotions and social awareness. Lastly is curiosity, personality, or practical skills. But going back to the notion of IQ testing, the National Institute of Health, they actually have an article. This is what was stated: modern schooling has a significant impact on IQ, with research indicating that each year of formal education can increase IQ scores by roughly 1 to 5 points. Studies show that mentally challenging structured education fosters cognitive abilities and accounts for much of the rise in population IQ. This is known as the Flynn Effect. For 100 years, IQ testing with the general masses have gone up. It finally flatlined and is now showing a decline. They're actually coining that the Reverse Flynn Effect. If we're looking at IQ levels now going flat, if not declining, what exactly is constituting this decline? They actually narrowed it down to 3 major things. So the first is environmental factors. In our world, there's a lot more pollution out there. Our diets, we know there is highly processed food, I think really bad junk food. The lack of exercise. We don't see kids really going out to play as much anymore. The second is the education system. The education system is trying to adapt to all of this technology. Ironically, Dr. Horvath is saying is a big problem.
Last year, they redefined reading comprehension to mean 54 short sentences with 1 question about each. That is skimming. That's not reading. What do kids do on computers? they skim. So rather than determining what do we want our children to do and gearing education towards that, we are redefining education to better suit the tool.
So third, of course, is the obvious, which is the impact of technology. Children are now having shorter attention spans. It's a lot more distracting because of social media apps and games. These are all the main reasons that the Flynn effect is reversing. I was really curious to the children of these big tech companies, thinking about whether it's the CEOs or the executives or even the workers, the employees, the engineers that work for these big tech companies. What do their children go through? A lot of these tech kids go to private schools. A very popular school that the Silicon Valley kids go to is Waldorf.
I've been in high technology in the Silicon Valley area for 25 years or so.
Kempton and Janice Azuno's kids attend the Waldorf School of the Peninsula in the heart of high-tech country.
There's plenty of time for them to learn technology. Plenty of time. I don't think it has a place in the classroom.
Just as you wouldn't let a child use a power tool until they were trained on the power tool, there's a time and place for technology.
Now, if you're not familiar with Waldorf, they have a very specific philosophy. They greatly limit tech.
Things look very different at the private Sacramento Waldorf School in California, where technology isn't used at all through 8th grade and is scarce even in high school.
On the main page, all the kids have to lock up their smartphones. The curriculum that these children go through is entirely different than what I see in the public school system. It says here on the website, digital skills can be learned very quickly, so it doesn't really have a place with the children. And again, at earliest, they start introducing tech at roughly the 8th grade. And even when they bring it in the 8th grade, they still limit it. And I'm like, wait a second. I was told that in order for kids to get ahead, they need to be tech literate. They need to be equipped as much as possible in order to succeed in the future. And I'm seeing, again, with these tech kids, it's a different philosophy. On the Waldorf website, they reference the World Economic Forum. And it says here that the WEF identifies the most valuable 21st century skills as critical thinking, creativity, problem solving, and emotional intelligence, not technical skills. And I was like, well, wait a second. If that's what the WEF is saying is important for the next generation to get ahead and succeed, I'm not quite seeing that in the public school system. We see that these children going to Waldorf, or let's just say Waldorf type private schools where they emphasize this, they want the kids to excel in critical thinking, in creativity, in problem solving. That made me think, what do I need to do with my own children? With my kids, I'll be honest, we used the iPad. It was sort of the electronic nanny. I mean, given this was many, many years ago, you didn't have all these scientific studies coming out in terms of what it did to the brain or what it did to attention span. But now that we're being exposed to all this data when it comes to IQ or critical thinking, problem solving, that at any age, whether young or old, those skill sets can be strengthened. I'm looking at my children and I'm saying, okay, what can I do at this point as a parent to move the needle? I'm not here to claim I'm a perfect parent. Being bombarded with this technology just advancing so quickly, even if I try to deprive my children of this technology, everyone around them is using it to a certain degree. I think about IQ levels, kind of like visiting the dentist. Imagine every single visit is like a new generation, and it's like the dental report was, oh, no cavities, everything's good. That's like the Flynn effect. That IQ levels were increasing decade after decade. But all of a sudden, imagine going to the dentist and they see something's wrong. And through their findings, they're like, we see cavities starting to form. Me being a parent, I want to look at it this way. Okay, what's causing the cavities? We need to reverse that. That's how I view everything that's going on with technology. And I want to do everything to be as proactive when it comes to my kids and the development. I'm in no way shaming anyone or their parenting styles. We're just in uncharted territory. It did make me think about when Steve Jobs was interviewed. He himself said that his children are not exposed to the iPad and he felt it was too dangerous. It's just wild that a lot of these tech innovators already knew this. They probably knew things that we all didn't know. And we had to now wait till 2026. Something is really happening to our brains with all this technology. How can I move the needle? What can I do at home with my kids where they can be as equipped as best as possible as they start to become adults? So my question now is, what are your thoughts when it comes to the IQ and the Flynn effect, reverse Flynn effect? How do you feel about the school system with tech? What are your thoughts? I would love to read the comments. And if you felt that this information was helpful, I'd greatly appreciate it if you like, subscribe, and even hit the bell icon. And I look forward to the next video.